From the Foundation Studio right here on Biloxi's Back Bay, welcome to SuperTalk Outdoors, where, as you well know by now, we celebrate every single Monday at lunchtime the world-class outdoors of the state of Mississippi. As you will hear me say every single week, the reason why we celebrate is because we're the capital of the outdoors in America. I believe that to my core. I want to thank you for listening on the powerful SuperTalk Mississippi Radio Network, or on SuperTalk TV at C-Spire TV. But if you're listening on Facebook or YouTube or your favorite podcast, it is July the 11th, 2022. It's my son Justin's birthday. Happy birthday, Justin. And my wife and I are celebrating our anniversary today as well. So God bless my amazing wife, Ann. Listen, I had the opportunity to have lunch with Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann recently. We had a really good visit. We just caught up, and he shared his excitement for the Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund that was enacted this past legislative session. He's in the process now of actually appointing the Board of Trustees to the committee. And it was just really good to hear his excitement. And, you know, we're really looking forward to getting this board in place. The oversight responsibility for this effort is really, really important. The members of the board that are appointed by the Lieutenant Governor and the Governor have to be beyond reproach, have to be seasoned business people who love the outdoors, because we want the first round of projects to be, we have to knock it out of the park. We want to find the federal matching funds. We want this to be a really great demonstration year so that subsequent years can be, obviously a continuation of that game-changing activity. This is really that important. It's going to be, we're talking about spending with matching funds $30, $40, $50 million a year on conservation in Mississippi. This is terrific. I talk about safety every single week on SuperTalk Outdoors. I was really sad to see this, that the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries enforcement agents are investigating a fatal boating accident that occurred on July the 4th over in Livingston Parish in Louisiana. The body of Madison Bradley, she was 17 years old, from Slidell, was recovered from the Blind River around 8 p.m. on July the 4th. Louisiana Department of Wildlife Fisheries agents were notified of a missing boater around 5:40 p.m. According to other people on the boat, Bradley was a passenger on a pontoon boat with 5 other people. She was riding on the bow in front of the protective rail with another male passenger. The boat hits a wake from a passing vessel and knocked Bradley and the male passenger into the water. Bradley did not resurface after suffering severe prop strikes. The male passenger was able to resurface and only had minor injuries. The Department of Wildlife and Fisheries in Louisiana arrested the operator of the vessel. His name was David Croce, 33, from Denham Springs, for vehicular homicide and operating a vessel while impaired, and also reckless operation of a vehicle. He was booked in the Livingston Parish Jail. This is a sad reminder that when we're in the outdoors, we cannot drop our guard. And by the way, alcohol and operating a boat just don't mix. They just don't. This was the senseless death of a young woman who had literally just graduated high school and had so much life in front of her. A sad reminder. Please take note. Be responsible for yourself, and if you see others that are not following the right safety procedures, please do your role as a citizen to get their attention and make sure that they protect others. So now let's switch gears. Here on the coast, if you go back and look at the history, there has always been a tug-of-war between the federal government and the states when it comes to management of species of certain saltwater fish. Red snapper among them, amberjack among them, and there are others, but especially red snapper. It will not surprise you to learn that tug-of-war continues. And with all that in mind, in a recent letter that I read from Senator Wicker, I wanted to invite an old friend to join me on Coast View to sort of talk about the situation. I also want to talk to him about, fishing reefs, something that Joe Spraggins and I talked about recently. We really need to step it up, and we want to step it up, but we need to get cooperation from all the various entities to be able to make that happen. We need more reefs off the coast of Mississippi. So without any further ado, let me introduce my friend, Ralph Humphrey. And he's actually the current president of the Mississippi Gulf Fishing Banks Incorporated. Ralph, how you doing, my friend?
Doing great, Bubba. It's good to see you. Glad to be here.
It's good to see you too. We had Terry Waldrop on last week. He also called me Bubba. My closest friends call me Bubba. My family do as well. Kind of Mississippi and Bubba, it goes together. Maybe I should change this note, the name of the show to Super Talk Outdoors with Bubba. It probably would make more sense. But anyway, Ralph, it's great to see you, man. It's, we go back a long way. Our sons played soccer together. And it's amazing how fast time flies, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. My son graduated from high school now over 10 years ago.
Man, unbelievable. Curtis, I know that what I remember about Curtis is, first of all, he's a great soccer player, a great team player, has such a great attitude. He went into the military. I remember, was he a sniper or something? I'm trying to remember what he did.
He was. He came home after a year of college at Southern Miss and said, I'm joining the Army. And he's been in the 82nd Airborne, jumping out of airplanes. He's been through sniper school, and currently, he just finished up 2-year detail as a drill instructor at boot camp. He's currently stationed in Colorado, and was deployed to Poland with his unit 1st of April. They're going to be there till next year.
Wow. God bless him, man. God bless him. I had the opportunity to focus on the military community all the time on my show, Coast View on the Coast. What the Seabees, the Marines, the Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard have done to embed coastal Mississippi is just incredible. I mean, so many people have come through here. They've been all over the world, but they choose to come back to coastal Mississippi. You got a kind of a similar story. Your dad was in the Air Force. You've lived all over the world, but you fell in love with coastal Mississippi yourself, didn't you?
That's a fact. I literally have lived all over the world, Europe, North Africa, from East Coast to West Coast of the United States. And we moved here in January of '92 from Miami, Florida, after several years down there. And our intention was to stay here for just a couple, 3 years and move on in my career. But we literally fell in love with Biloxi, Mississippi. There's no crowds to speak of. All the fishing and hunting and scuba diving, everything you want to do, you can do it right here. And it's you don't have a crowd with you when you're doing it.
Well, I'm seeing for the radio audience, you see a duck, a framed duck print behind him. You see some deer behind him. I know of him because I follow him on Facebook that he loves fishing offshore. And if the room that I'm in, I'm looking at rods and reels all over the place, and spear guns, and I've got ducks and an area where I top flies. And man, once it gets in your blood, you can't just do one thing, can you? There's so many opportunities in Mississippi, aren't there?
There really is. It's just unbelievable the amount of opportunities that are here, and it amazes me that people don't realize that from outside the state. They just don't know.
Well, Ralph, that's why I call it the capital of the outdoors. Again, you can go, like your son Curtis is in Colorado. You can go to Colorado and you can experience aspects of outdoors we can't do here in Mississippi. But when you look at turkey hunting and deer hunting and duck hunting and offshore fishing, offshore fishing, this, some of the best in the world, what we have access to, both in terms of offshore and backwater off the coast of Mississippi, is literally some of the best in the world. Anyway, when you add it all up together, even if you don't like hunting or fishing, if you just want to do amazing canoeing, and the Pascagoula River is the largest undammed waterway in the entire United States. You think about all these aspects. We're very lucky to live here, and it probably, to some extent, it's good that it's a well-kept secret because, already, if you talk to the folks at the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, they'll tell you that the interest in deer hunting and duck hunting and turkey hunting from people coming in from outside Mississippi has increased dramatically, and so, I'd rather keep it a secret, frankly.
Yeah, I would too, actually.
Hey, look, before we get to the topic at hand, you were an air traffic controller for 35 years in federal service. I remember when you retired. You've really enjoyed retirement, but you enjoyed what you did as well when you were working, didn't you?
I really did. It was a great profession, very rewarding, and I had a ball with it. Got to see a lot of the country and met people from all over. So yeah, it was an exciting career too. Every day was exciting.
So let's shift gears. I'm really happy that you've been in this position with the Gulf Banks group for so long, because as you heard, I spent some time. I was the publisher of the Mobile newspaper, had responsibilities for newspapers and digital assets across the state of Alabama. I led the oil recovery efforts for Governor Riley after Hurricane Katrina, after the oil spill, and got to know people on the coast really well, really well. And I have all the secret numbers in my GPS of all the reefs, both artificial and private, both public and private, off the coast of Alabama. And as you probably know, we're talking about hundreds and hundreds.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable how good they've done there. And I know that Mississippi wants to move in that direction too. So when we come back after the break, we'll talk a little bit about the efforts in Mississippi to increase the opportunities to do fishing off our coast. And then why do we continue to have a battle with the federal government on how to manage our fisheries? It's amazing to me after all these years, we're still in that position. When we continue, we're going to talk red snapper with Ralph Humphrey. We'll see you after this break.
Leading the conversation on Mississippi's outdoors. It's Super Talk Outdoors with Ricky Matthews on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. I have my friend Ralph Humphreys. He's the current president of the Mississippi Gulf Fishing Banks. We'll tell you what that is here in just a second. But we're going to talk about this tug of war between the around red snapper. It's not just red snapper, but that's the current conversation as it relates to red snapper and the allotment that the way that they're looking at it today is going to penalize Mississippi and Alabama tremendously. We'll come back to that in just a second. So, Ralph, when it comes to, I tell you what, it might be helpful for people to know what your organization does.
Our organization was founded by local business people and Chamber of Commerce folks in 1969, and the whole effort was to build artificial reefs off the coast of Mississippi to enhance fishing. As you're aware, off the coast of Mississippi, there's nothing but sand and mud out there. There's no live bottom, no corals or sponges, and the only reason we have a snapper fishery, a reef fishery, is because of the efforts started by Gulf Fishing Banks. So we've been working since '69, but most recently since the hurricane, we've really been working hard hand in hand with the Department of Marine Resources. They have the funding and we don't. So we work really hard with them to secure more reef materials and to help get them out there.
Well, Ralph, for me, let's say if I leave my house and head offshore, if I pass between Horn and Petty Boyce Island and go to FH2, there's something magical that happens around the 50-foot curve. And you've got this incredible amount of structure out there. Usually some of our little sweet spots, we usually don't have a ton of competition, even though there could be a lot of boats there because people are there pretty dramatically. And then, of course, you go to FH13. We like to fish FH7 a lot, which is obviously out in a little bit deeper water. But you heard what I said about Alabama, all these numbers they have. The opportunities for Mississippi to have the same sort of thing is there. But we just have to have all the different organizations working together with the same kind of aggressive goals. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. It is a team effort. And it really boils down to a matter of funding, plain and simple.
Yeah.
Plenty of opportunities to either construct materials like pyramids or to obtain excess materials like bridge pilings and culverts that they dig up out of the streets. There's plenty of that stuff out there. It comes down to a matter of getting paying to get it out there on the bottom.
There's no doubt about that. And by the way, this conservation trust fund that I mentioned a few minutes ago, $20 million is going to be in that fund. That might be an opportunity for you guys to go apply to that group. And there's going to be a lot of focus on federal matching funds. There's a lot of federal matching funds out there. I don't know if there are for reefs, but maybe we could find it either through the public sector or the private sector. Let's move on. You know, it is amazing to me, Ralph, after all of these years that we can't seem to get some coordinated effort between the federal government and the states around red snapper. I mean, I spent time as publisher in New Orleans. That was a hot topic in New Orleans. I was publisher in Mobile. That was the hot topic in Alabama. It's always been a hot topic in Mississippi. Why can't we get all the organizations aligned around the most recent data and what it's saying to us?
So most of the states are in alignment with one another. It's the federal government that is diametrically opposed to what we're doing. They want to continue to use outdated data that's not appropriate, and they're disregarding everything we're doing. In other words, the state of Mississippi has the state-of-the-art fish counting system with that tails and scales program. Alabama is a real close second to what we're doing. The other three states, maybe not as much, but they could come on board and get a little bit better with counting fish. But the government has chosen not only to disregard what we're doing, but the great red snapper count that spent millions of dollars that was funded by the government to go out there and count fish. They've chose to disregard all that as well. And they're going to continue to use outdated, incorrect data for determining how many fish are out there. And as a result, we're all going to suffer. But Alabama and Alabama and Mississippi definitely have the most to lose. We're going to be cut by 2/3.
Yeah, 2/3. Think about it, Ralph. 2/3. And you think about not only that as a valuable fishery for recreational fishermen, but also charter boat captains that,
Yes.
now that we've got these shallower reef structures that you guys have put into place, it makes it so that the charter boat captains can actually get out to red snapper, whereas before they would have had to go way offshore to the rigs, and it just wasn't a viable approach. At least it wasn't an affordable approach to serving their customers. The fact that we would shorten their seasons, it blows my mind that we are in this position. What are we going to do about it?
Well, it's right now that proposed rule change is on the Federal Register. I recently this weekend sent out emails to as many fishermen as I could think of that I had an email address for, and encouraged them to forward that same email out to all of their friends. We need to go online, go to that web, and I tell you what really brought it to my attention was Senator Wicker's editorial in Sunday's newspaper. It made me realize that it's actually in play now. So it's up for public comment until July 28th. It's important that everybody in all 5 Gulf states, but particularly Mississippi, Alabama, that we go to those links and make our public comments, make our voice known, do it in a respectful way. Don't say what you're thinking, because they'll disregard that right away. Be respectful and be sensible about it, and make an opinion there that's going to matter, so that perhaps maybe they'll reconsider. I do know that recently talking to the DMR guys, that they are gangbusters over there against what's going on. They don't agree with what the federal government is doing either, not by a long shot. So they're working overtime right now trying to come up with a reasonable response and a message to NOAA.
Well, there's an economic message there for charter boat captains. There's a recreational fishing message there that all sort of go to the same thing, which is, why can't we get coordinated? Why can't we collaborate around the data that's being developed? We have significant data. And we won't get into the details of their collection process, but the bottom line is, the way they go about checking for red snapper are not consistent with what we're experiencing here, whether it be at the rigs or at the reefs. And there simply is not a problem, man. You can go up to any number offshore, especially over in Alabama, because there's so many, and because there's so many reefs, there's not as much pressure. And throw chum out, Ralph, and the red snapper just come out of nowhere. You can literally pick them off. At one point we had a problem, but just like we had with redfish, but we don't have a problem now. And people just need to make their appeal, especially if they enjoy fishing off our coast or they care about the charter boat fishing group. We've just got to make this point clear. It's good to see Wicker's office aggressively focus on it, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Really glad to see that. He's been an advocate for not only fishermen, but reef building. He's on the Commerce Committee. Actually, Senator Hyde-Smith's office has been very helpful in helping us get some of these reef permits. And that's another problem that I'm experiencing right now. We haven't touched on, but the reef permitting process with marine fisheries is unbelievable. It's horrendous.
And at a time when we should be going out of our way to create more structure, more reefs, more opportunity, the very organization, the National Marine Fisheries Group that is responsible for permitting reef building, has been dragging their feet. The federal government's got to get on board. What's interesting is that anytime, and this comes up on my show on Coast View all the time, but anytime where we need to get the focus of a federal agency on whatever the issue might be, it could be the flood maps, it could be around fishing. There are a number of different dimensions to this. It's so hard to get traction because on the national scale, there's just so much noise today, and cutting through that noise and actually making change happen in a positive way is not easy. So it's going to take all of us being aligned. Everyone who's concerned about this should get online and make your points known. Hey, so Ralph, what website is the best website for people to go to learn more and to make their comments?
Okay, so our organization has a website, mgfb.org. We are a nonprofit, all volunteer group, but and I don't have the link in front of me, but it's the NOAA website.
Yeah.
Now, in fact, if you look at Senator Wicker's article online, there was a link online just recently.
Okay.
It's the NOAA website.
But I think the quickest way, because even if we had the exact site, if you just do a search on NOAA, 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 and red snapper, just do search NOAA red snapper, it's going to come up.
Yeah.
And go there and make your comments and help us seek alignment with the federal government once and for all. I can't believe that we continually, year after year after year, find ourselves in a position where we're fighting with the federal government over who controls that resource. Anyway, Ralph, it's been a pleasure. We'll have you back. I want to have a deeper conversation about the history of your organization, what our goals are, and I want to do everything in my power to help you build more reefs, because with them removing one oil rig after another, this is where a lot of the action is going to be for coastal Mississippi fishermen. Have a good day, my friend, and I appreciate you joining me.
All right. Thank you, Bob. It was good to see you.
You bet. When we come back, we're going to talk about snakes. We'll see you after this.
Just carry on. I'll carry on. Mississippi.
SuperTalk Outdoors. I really enjoyed that conversation with Ralph Humphrey. He's just an old friend. His son Curtis, who's in the military, that we talked about. I really can't thank him enough for his service in the military. And Ralph, after a long history as in the aviation world, I forgot what his last title was, but he was an air traffic controller, and he was a manager there. So his volunteer work in the reef building world is really important, and I look forward to having him on again soon to talk more about that, because it's so important to coastal Mississippi and our goal of staying the capital of the outdoors in America. Now I want to shift gears, and we're going to talk snakes and World Snake Day and all kinds of stuff. But I want to welcome to SuperTalk Outdoors my friend Nicole Smith. She's a project specialist with the Museum of Natural Science in Jackson. How you doing, Nicole?
I'm great. Thanks for asking.
It's good to see you. It's good to see you. Hey, look, before we get into some of the stuff that's coming up, soon, actually, on July the 15th, which is this coming Friday, I just want to learn a little bit about you. How did you get into the Museum of Natural Science world?
Well, I grew up at the base of a place called Rattlesnake Mountain, appropriately enough, in North Alabama. And just grew up in nature. And when I went to college, I kind of double whammied. I did an anthropology and geology degree just because why not? I loved all of that. And when all was said and done, I thought, well, what better thing to do than work in the museum environment and share the things that sorry, I'm holding this camera really weird, and share the things that I really love with people. And I feel like as a culture, maybe humans are a little more disconnected from nature than they could or should be, or more disconnected from it than they should be. And so I like to think of myself as a science communicator, a nature communicator, to get people like out in nature and to learn more about it. So,
So how long have you been with the department?
Since 2005.
And what did you do before then?
I worked at a couple of different science organizations. I worked at Ruffner Mountain Nature Center, and before that, McWane Science Center. So I've been doing some form of education since 1999.
Wow, that's awesome. Hey, this show is sponsored by the foundation, and we that's the shortened name of the Foundation for Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. It's not to be confused, of course, with the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, but they were formed to help fill gaps in projects for the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. And it's an incredible group of board members who are dedicated to conservation and the future of enjoying, the outdoors in Mississippi. And through this show, I get an opportunity to talk to so many people from the department, from the Natural Science Museum and a wide range of other professions. And I see this over and over again, this incredible dedication for people who just want to help people know and have a better relationship with the outdoors. And you don't have to be a hunter or fisher. You could just do anything that involves the outdoors. And it seems to me that one of the areas you're involved in, and kind of the topic of today's conversation, snakes, is something that just fascinates people. People who are scared to death of snakes still are fascinated by them. And people who love snakes and are obviously fascinated by them, but probably they're kind of like a shark, aren't they, Nicole? People just are just interested in them, whether they dislike them or not. They're interested in them. It just, you put a snake in the headline, more people are going to read the story, just like if you put shark in a headline. Why is that?
I think on some level we like the idea of danger, and there is an association with danger with sharks and snakes. But the truth is, they are horribly misunderstood animals, each of them. And so I feel like if I am blessed to do one particular thing, it has helped to increase understanding about these animals and their role in the ecosystem. And not about being frightened around them, but to be smart around them and to give peace between the animal and those people around them so that everybody lives a happy and good life.
I had a special relationship with I guess it was a chicken snake. I might not be saying that right, but a long, it seemed dangerous, but it wasn't. And it was about 3 feet long. And I have a very long pier that goes out into Biloxi Bay. And he would go down to the end of the pier and get caught up in one of my nets, and my friend Mark Creech would come back over and he would help me get the snake out, and we would release it again. In another part of the yard. Somehow he would make his way back out to the end of the pier. He enjoyed being at the end of the pier. And that snake, I'm sure, is still around, just enjoying life. But Mark has taught me. Mark he's a snake expert. I often call him MacGyver, but he's taught me that it's terrible that people, when they see a snake, no matter what kind of snake it is, they want to kill it. And you spend a lot of time educating people so they won't do that, because we actually need snakes in our environment, don't we?
We do. They're amazing animals. Okay, so in Mississippi, there are like 55 different species of snakes, and only 6 of those are going to be venomous. But keep in mind, if you have a family member or yourself, if you've had some sort of treatment for your heart, in all likelihood, some of the medicines that were used to treat you came from research behind venomous snakes.
Wow.
Yeah, and I love to point this out to my students, is that when you walk into a doctor's office, you see that staff with the snake crawling up it, right? That's because snakes are symbols of healing. When their skin is injured, they shed that skin for healing, because they're used in heart medicine research. They're healing. They're an amazing animals, and they're definitely worthy of our respect.
Wow. Mark told me about a snake once that they released inside their hunting camp that helped them fight rodents, and it stayed there for years and years. And the only way they knew it was there was, they'd see it when the skin, after it had shed the skin. And I'm like, no, thank you. I'm not interested in living with one. But you've probably heard that before, haven't you?
I'll do you one better. archaeology professor. He was working in South America, and he had a terrible rodent problem. And so he actually caught one of the non-venomous snakes. It was a thatched roof. And so he put this constrictor in the roof, and it did the job he wanted it to do. It got rid of all of his rodents. And so he lived a happier, pest-free life as a result of nature's exterminator. So it worked out really nicely for him.
Wow, that's so interesting. Again, you know, the practical-minded people who really know snakes well know they can get
people that study them. Like, you know, I've learned a lot at the museum from people like Terry Vandevender, who's like this, you know, the snake man of Mississippi. And, you know, Terry was involved in a research project about what does it take to make a snake bite you?
Ah, interesting.
Right. And so particularly they were looking at venomous snakes, you know, trying to figure that out. But what I thought was kind of interesting is that in 75% of like all of the bites by venomous snakes, those happen only because people are trying to kill the snake or harass the snake or bother the snake. The snake has no interest in you. It wants to go about living its life. You're a giant thing and you come up near it and by it and harassing it. It's going to defend itself just like you would defend yourself if a giant was harassing you.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of respect for an animal that's very live and let live, but you know, still wanting to defend itself, and it's good to be smart around those animals.
I had an experience. This happened actually a couple times with me. I was running at my place over in Alabama once, and up ahead of me, maybe 30 or 40 yards, literally the largest rattlesnake I've ever seen in my life crosses the road in front of me. And at one point, it was a normal, you know, asphalt road, you know, two-way street. At one point, his tail was at the midline. His head was already past the asphalt on the other side. So I don't know how long this snake was, and it was literally this big around. You know that we've got snakes that big. And then last year I was on a four-wheeler up at one of the farms we lease in the Delta, and I experienced another rattlesnake that large again. But it's interesting to me that we don't normally see those. You know, they kind of stay out of sight, out of mind. I'm curious why we don't see them more often like that, these really big ones.
Well, they're fairly secretive animals. You know, they don't live their lives for our pleasure. You know, they go, you know, in burrows and looking for mice. They go, you know, in habitat that's ideal for them. So they're just, you know, they're going to go in a place that works for them. Just like me and my favorite chair in the living room. I'm going to go where my most favorite place, just like they will. So.
That's so cool. Hey, look, we're visiting with my friend Nicole, who is with the Mississippi Museum of Natural Science, and she's a project specialist there. We'll continue our conversation with Nicole Smith after this, but we're going to talk about the World Snake Day and some stuff coming up at the museum. We'll see you after this.
We live in one of the best places in America to enjoy the outdoors. So let's talk about it. It's Super Talk Outdoors with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. I really appreciate you joining us, and as usual, the conversations we have here are always terrific. And today is no exception. I had the opportunity to visit with Nicole Smith, who's a project specialist at the Mississippi Museum of Natural Science, and we talked a lot about snakes and why they're important, and how they're really misunderstood, and I absolutely get that completely. But Friday, July the 15th, this coming Friday, from 10 to 2, the Mississippi Museum of Natural Science is going to celebrate World Snake Day. So let's talk about what if someone comes to this event, what are they going to get to experience?
So World Snake Day is an international event. It is celebrated across the world, and different cultures, have different thoughts and understandings of snakes. We celebrate Mississippi snakes. And when you come to this event, we spend a couple of months trying to capture as many of the different species that we have in the state as possible. We're probably not going to get all 55, but we give it a good go. And we will have them there with experts to tell you more about those animals. So you'll see some of the venomous snakes, which everyone's very curious about. But then you'll also get a chance to learn about some of our more elusive animals, our rarer animals like the eastern indigo snake, which has not been found in the wild here since the very early 1900s. Things like the black pine snake, another one of our endangered species. You'll get a chance to see something so rare and beautiful. And then we also have like a craft or two for the kids so they can help learn the difference between a venomous and a non-venomous snake, which I think is like really important. And we teach people how to act when they find wild snakes and what they should do, how they should respond. So it's a very educational event. There's a lot of joy in it. A few of the snakes are what we call animal ambassadors. They're ones that we teach with regularly at the museum, and those are touch opportunity animals. I like to tell all my students that you are young scientists and you have heard that reptiles are cold-blooded. So I want you to touch this reptile and tell me, is he cool or warm to the touch? And that, you know, and that gives them this little moment of insight. We have some eggs that they can see up close when possible. We have some skins that they can look at. We tell them how to identify a snake based on its skin. You know, there's a lot to learn. They'll even is normally one station about what to do if, let's say, you're hunting and your dog gets bit by a snake. What should you do? You know, so we've gotten instructive information about that as well. This event's been going on at the museum for right around 20 years. It's one of our biggest events. We have about, well, in COVID, we had about 500, but now it's probably going to go up to about 800 to 1,000 people to see it. And we've changed the format so it's spread through the whole building so that you don't crowd up. And that way you can walk around and see all of the snakes. We even have a lecture that was pre-recorded by snake expert Terry Vandevender, which people can watch on the museum's YouTube channel. So that way you can get all the educational information from his traditional lecture while still keeping people moving around like in a more COVID precautious way, which is, you know, a thoughtful thing that we have to do. And it's great, you know, like it's so much fun. Kids love it.
I should point out adults are $8, children are $6, and for ages 3 and under, they're free. Absolutely. Or under 3 are free. You know what's cool about what the museum has done over so many years, and I hear this in your voice, I've heard it in the voices of others. There's a real passion, isn't there, to share. I mean, Mississippi is really gifted when it comes to natural resources, but we're gifted that we've got so many people who are willing to share that with others and have really dedicated their lives to it. I mean, you're surrounded by people like that, aren't you?
It's nice to be home. You know, it's nice to be around like-minded people who are just as excited as I am about nature. And don't get me started about birds and fossils because I'll talk your ear right off. But you know, for like days and not even realize I'm doing it. But it's just such a wonderful thing. I feel very blessed that this is my calling.
What you have right there, what's interesting, because people pass it, you know, people going north and people who are from Jackson, people driving south, they pass the Museum of Natural Science, but they look over there and they see something that's kind of obscure on the interstate. But not until you go on to the premises do you realize just how thoughtful somebody was, the vision that somebody had to create that special place, that park and all right there in Jackson. It is a special place, isn't it?
Absolutely. We have different events through the year. We have new exhibits every 6 months. We have special summer camps for kids. We have teacher workshops starting next week. We've got a bunch of teacher workshops. I'm doing a STEAM in Space workshop with one of NASA's Solar System ambassadors. So look on our website, mdwfp.com, or check us out on Facebook, Mississippi Museum of Natural Science, and you'll see all the special things we're doing through the year.
This has been Nicole Smith from the Mississippi Museum of Natural Science in Jackson talking about World Snake Day coming up this Friday. Look into it. Hope you can bring your family there. It's been a real pleasure, Nicole. I enjoyed your enthusiasm.
Thank you so much, Ricky. I appreciate you having me.
It's been a pleasure. We'll see you next week. And until then, please stay safe. Stay safe when you're in the outdoors, please. Have a great week.
Carry on. Mississippi.